Jared Goff and Jordan Addison are sneaky good fantasy starts in Week 10. We dig into the best sleepers and DFS plays of the week on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football podcast. Thank you for joining us every day, Monday through Friday. We are here to help you win your fantasy football leagues. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer, and I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions do apply. It's our Friday show. Every week on Friday, we kind of like just tie the bow on the present and finish up this week to help you prep for your Week 10 and get your lineups all set up. So we're going to, of course, give you one best sleeper at each position. Then we'll get into our favorite DFS plays of PrizePicks and FanDuel later on in today's show. Let's start with the quarterback position. Jared Goff. We think he is a really solid play this week, and he hasn't been, right? I mean, the last 2 weeks, he's put up 15 points and 9 points, but it's because they never ask him to throw the ball. Like, he just doesn't have to do much because the running game is so good, but against this Texans offense, he should finally have to, put the ball in the air and put up some points himself.
Yeah, I mean, last week our quarterback pick let us down in Joe Flacco, but I think going back to the Sunday night game, I think we're going to have a lot of success with Jared Goff this week. And by the way, our other sleepers included Chase Brown and Mike Gesicki, who came through last week. Chase Brown was awesome last night. Now, you're probably playing catch-up potentially if you faced Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson or Jamar Chase. So you need to go for some upside at these sleeper spots. And Jared Goff certainly comes with it. Now, he's only had 2 really blow-up fantasy games this season. I know everyone's been gushing about his league-leading completion percentage, but there's not a lot of touchdowns that have come with it. There's not been a lot of huge games. There were some games where he didn't even get to 100 yards. So when you look at Jared Goff, he's going to have to throw. However, on the Texans, CJ Stroud, it's also pointing in a good direction with him, with Nico Collins and Tank Dell, which means this could be a high-scoring affair. It's hard to run on the Lions. It's hard to run on the Texans. So both of these teams should be putting the ball up in the air quite a bit. We have Jameson Williams returning. I think that's been related to Goff not being so good the last 2 weeks. He hasn't had his deep threat. Amara St. Brown. I think he'll open up the rest of the offense with Sam Laporta. We know Jahmyr Gibbs can also help in the passing game. So if you're looking for someone that has some massive upside and you're on the other side staring at the Burrow or Jackson game, you have a shot here with Goff. I'm not going to say you're going to get 40 fantasy points, but you need to get maybe 25 to 30 to help you cut into that difference. And I think you can get that from Jared Goff.
And I think that Jameson Williams point is really great to bring up because I do think he's been missing that weapon. The last 3 games he's played with Jameson Williams, 27 points, 25 points, 19 points. So 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions during that span, and was putting up close to 300 passing yards per game over that span. So there is that upside, and I think he will hit it this week in that matchup against the Texans. Now for our running back, we're getting a little bold here because Brian Robinson Jr. could be back, right, from injury, but even if he's back, I like Austin Ekeler this week against my Steelers. He's looking good, right? He looks good in this offense. He's getting utilized as a receiver and he's getting the rushing, but I guess last week the rushing was due to Brian Robinson not being there. But this is exactly the type of running back the Steelers struggle against. Like, I don't think they're going to have any issues about stopping Brian Robinson Jr. up the middle. But Austin Ekeler with his speed and his quickness, he could really hurt them. And the Steelers have been giving up so many points to running backs over the last handful of weeks. Like, they could be beat in that area.
Yeah, and we look at Tyrone Tracy. He was that type of back, right? I mean, he's a little bit younger. Obviously, he's a rookie. And Eckler's been around the corner a few times, but we know what kind of back he is. He still looks strong. He still looks quick coming over from the Chargers. He hasn't really slowed down all that much when you look at him. So he keeps himself in great shape, and that has been evident here when they've needed him. And I think they will need him in this game. You make a very good point about the Steelers. They're okay in the middle in the pass rush, they're good on the edge, but not as good at stopping running backs on the outside. So that really helps Ekeler here. I was looking at Chase Brown last night, and he was our sleeper last week. He went off again, even with the fumble, making all those little catches, wearing number 30. He reminded me a lot of a young Ekeler, right? A guy that you can put in the red zone. He's going to be tough. He's going to catch passes. The other thing that I thought about was Tracy is almost like Ekeler because he's a converted receiver. He's a very good pass catcher. So all these kind of parallels really play well into Eckler's value this week. And they're going to have to throw short passes, right? The Commanders just don't turn over the ball. That's one thing they don't do. They also are going to try to avoid TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith and that pressure. So Jane Daniels is going to be commanded here to get the ball out of his hand, and no pun intended there, to get it out quickly, get it to Ekeler. Look, those big plays, Terry McLaurin may not develop as easily this week, so check down City, and if you can't really trust the consistency of Zach Ertz and Luke McCaffrey and some of these other short area guys, you have to trust Ekeler in that role.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we just saw, it's not only Tyrone Tracy had a great game in week 8, their last game played the Steelers, but Breece Hall had 103 receiving yards against the Steelers. Like maybe Ekeler doesn't do much at all on the ground. That's fine. Like you said, the pass rush is going to force them to have to check down the Ekeler a lot. So Eckler's a good sleeper this week. At wide receiver, Jordan Addison of the Vikings. He really hasn't done all too much this year. He's had 2 viable fantasy games, and outside of that, nothing. Last week, though, he did have 5 receptions. That was a season high, only 42 yards on it, but did come down with a touchdown. The thing is, he just gets such a great matchup this week against the Jaguars that if you roster him and you're not starting him in this game, then like really, what are you even holding him on to?
Yeah, and you have some receivers that are out this week that you might have been counting on of late, like in that third spot, right? Like a Cedric Tillman or Jacoby Myers or one of the Packers that you may have been plugging in a little bit to get some value. But now you have this option here to look at Jordan Addison, and he hasn't seen a lot of red zone and end zone targets on this team. Jalen Naylor seems to be the guy they look at if it's not Justin Jefferson. Jefferson is not a big scorer. We know that as well. But when you look at it, I think we thought that Addison would actually benefit from TJ Hawkinson not being in there. But I think he benefits more when Hawkinson's around because it creates another guy who draws attention. We saw Josh Oliver step up at tight end last week as well, and that's what helped Addison, right? You had to worry about the tight end. You had to worry about Justin Jefferson downfield. Here comes Addison. He's a sneaky good receiver who's going to get open. And look at the Vikings again. I think they're going to come out throwing against the Jaguars. I think they want to make a point here that they can light them up. Jaguars are beatable on the ground, but the Vikings' strength is really not that, right? They're not going to be just pounding Aaron Jones up the middle. And they're just going to look for the pass plays all over the field. So I think it helps. I'll just say this. I think it's going to be a good game for all 3 of these guys, Jefferson, Hawkinson, and Addison. That's where we're going to go. So you only have 3 weapons that you really have to consider here going off against this Jaguar secondary. When I say secondary, bad at corner, bad at safety, go after this team. And you want every piece of every receiving core that plays the Jaguars this year.
I like that a lot. I wasn't thinking about Jordan Addison as like an amazing play until like the last like day or so, but I have to move him up my rankings. That's a really good point. Everything that you just said. Now, tight end, we brought this guy up a couple times this week already, but Theo Johnson, just such a good matchup. And he's been on the field for 90% of the Giants offensive snaps since week 6. Only Trey McBride, K. Dotton, and George Kittle have played on a higher percentage of their team snaps. We saw last week, he put up career high, 6 targets, 51 yards, came down with his first career touchdown. The matchup against the Panthers is just so amazing. They've allowed the most touchdowns and fantasy points to tight ends this season. And like, even looking at the guys who've done it the last 3 weeks, Zach Ertz put up 14.3 points. Adam Troutman, 18.5. Taysom Hill, I know he does it in a different way, but 16 points. So like, they're all doing that against the Panthers. Those are huge names. And Darius Slayton's out. Like, Theo Johnson could have a really great game this week.
Don't forget about Foster Moreau also scoring last week.
Yeah.
So anybody can really do anything on the Panthers. They are the team that's now giving up the most fantasy points to tight ends, the most yards. The Chiefs and Buccaneers are way up there, right? But in terms of the points overall in fantasy, the Panthers are it, and mainly the touchdowns, the pay dirt, the good stuff here that you're looking at, the easy 6 points for our tight ends. So When you look at it, Michelle, there's a lineup I'm looking at. I live in Charlotte. I'm going to have to get up and watch this game. I'm not a Panthers fan, I'll just say that. But I'm looking at it as like, can I really start a lineup with Malik Neighbors, Tyrone Tracy, and Theo Johnson? Can I put 3 Giants offensive rookies in the same lineup in this game? Do I trust him? The answer is it looks really good. Like, I'm not hesitating. Neighbors has a great matchup all across the board. Tracy should have a big game if they're ahead. I think even Devin Singletary could have some trickle-down value in the second half if the Giants indeed play like they did last week offensively with Dan Jones. I know they lost to the Commanders, but Theo Johnson is starting to heat up. He's seen some consistent targets of late, and you would expect with Wan'Dale Robinson, kind of his role, I don't even know where he is at this point. His role is kind of waning. You don't have Slayton. I think this could be a 3 rookie headed monster, whatever you want to call it, for Daniel Jones. And I could see all 3 scoring and all 3 producing.
Absolutely. Like I know I keep like bringing up all 3 of them and then Daniel Jones and like, I'm like, how many Giants I like this week, but they all, I mean, just when you're going up against the Panthers, you want to play them. We're going to move on to our DFS segment, our daily fantasy football segments with our picks of the week and our FanDuel lineup. If you don't play daily fantasy sports, maybe you want to start, right? Or like every guy we're talking about, these are guys we love for fantasy this week. So we're still helping you, win your week, give you the guys we like. So stay around and you're still, be learning a lot for week 10. We'll get into all that after a quick break. This episode is brought to you by Arena Club. For most of us that like collecting cards, the idea of spending $2,000 or more on a Patrick Mahomes rookie card just isn't in the cards. I love collecting, but that's some serious money to drop. Thanks to slab packs from arenaclub.com, now it's possible to score gem mints for a fraction of their retail price. Arena Club is the only repack that provides real value, a complete view of all the possible cards, and clear hit rates for each one. Arena Club slab packs are revolutionizing the repack game with transparency. After your pulls are revealed, they're immediately be placed in your showroom for safekeeping, selling, trading, or auction. The Arena Club grading process is accurate, fast, and transparent with a full grade rationale provided, an explanation of how your card was scored. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the card collecting platform you have to check out. Right now, you can get 10% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL. That's arenaclub.com/LockedOnNFL. Code LockedOnNFL for 10% off your first purchase.
This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by Hims. Guys, your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, however, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. Hims provides access to a range of doctor-trusted ED treatments, such as chewable hard minis, and Viagra and Cialis and their generics for up to 95% cheaper than you'll find anywhere else. The process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication would ship directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. With hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers, Hims can help you find the right ED option that works for you. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/lockedon. That's Hims, Hims, hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. Hims.com/lockedon. Products mentioned are chewable compounded products which are not approved or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plans only at hims.com. All right, it's time to reveal our prize picks of the week. We have a 6-pack of picks to get to. We were both pretty good last week. We went 2 for 3, 67% on the week, and we've been giving you some good ones all season long. So, Michelle, let's reveal your number one PrizePicks picks of the week for our more total.
Yeah, this one I feel most confident about. I'm going with Brock Purdy, more than 254.5 passing yards against the Buccaneers. Purdy has hit this in all but 2 games this season. He has all of his weapons back, right? So one game he didn't hit it. It was against the Chiefs, where he literally was like Ricky Pearsall was his top guy. He's going to have all his guys back besides Brandon Ayuk, so that's going to be great for him. The Buccaneers have allowed 274 passing yards per game this season, third most in the NFL. But since week 5, they're allowing 320 passing yards per game. Like, Purdy needs 255. I think he gets that.
That's a really good pick, and it actually influenced my pick to change because I was looking at Brock Purdy and his rushing total. I mean, this guy has rushed for a lot of yards. So he's had no fewer than 11 yards in any given game this season. But what is the common denominator? There's been no Christian McCaffrey in these games. So he's going to have his Mr. Checkdown back this week. So I don't think he's going to run. So I avoided that one because it was 13.5. I'm going with a guy that actually runs. It's Kyler Murray. And the number is really low. And I was surprised at this. 28.5 rushing yards against the Jets. The Jets just let CJ Stroud, who is not a runner, get nearly 60 yards rushing in the game. They're going to flush him out of the pocket with their pass rush. He's going to take off and run. I mean, anytime you see something below 30 for Kyler Murray in rushing yards, you have to go for it. This guy has to take off and run. It's not going to be as easy for the running backs to go off in this game. We are talking about a tough matchup for Marvin Harrison Jr. downfield. Kyler is going to have to compile and create through his legs. So I love this. And the Jets are kind of like, I think, top 12, top 15 in giving rushing yards to quarterbacks. But I feel really confident with that Stroud production last week against the Jets.
Listen, you're like 100% on these quarterback rushing stats. So I am listening to you for sure with that one. Now, what's really cool about PrizePick app, if you haven't been on it, you can like choose combos. So you can choose there's ones with like multiple players that they just have to combine for certain yards. I liked those this week because like last night, there was one with Jamar Chase and Zay Flowers. They needed to combine for 144 yards. Now, Zay Flowers did nothing, but Jamar Chase hit it double like by himself. So like one guy can stink and the other guy could still make up for it. So I'm taking Chuba Hubbard plus Tyrone Tracy Jr. more than 142 combined rushing yards. Hubbard actually has the third most rushing yards in the NFL since week 3, behind only Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Pretty insane. And then the Giants, who he's facing, have allowed the most yards per carry in the NFL this year. Tyrone Tracy, on the other hand, it was a bad game last week, but he still played on 71% of the Giants' offensive snaps. He's had at least 16 carries in 4 of the last 5 weeks, including last week. And the Panthers have allowed the most rushing yards in the NFL this season. Like, this should be a heavy run game for both sides. I like both of them. And again, that's 70 yards per person, basically. And if one gets 100, then the other person can have a pretty bad game and be completely fine.
Yeah, and this is a great matchup. And Chuba Hubbard is going to want to celebrate his new contract. And it's funny you said that about the rushing yards, right? How much are they paying Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley on those teams? Okay, that's neither here nor there. But Chuba Hubbard has earned this contract by rushing that well. And don't worry about Jonathan Brooks, folks. I mean,
no, not at all.
The timing of paying Hubbard tells you how much they like Hubbard and how much they want him to be the main guy. So he's going to have a really nice game in Munich, Germany there. And Tyrone Tracy should as well. We've talked about it for many reasons. The Panthers stink against the run. We saw Alvin Kamara's game last week. I mean, they're just not very good overall. And the Giants are not good against the run. So this is perfect. And you figure both teams are going to be able to run for a while in this game because I don't see the Giants pulling away maybe until late, if that even happens in this one. So I love your call there with the combined. I love the combo. I'm going to solo with my running back. It's DeAndre Swift. I'm looking at the Patriots D. It's not very good against the run. DeAndre Swift, even in a bad game script, it was 29-9 in Arizona, got to 51 rushing yards with double-digit carries. In every other game, he's pretty much hit this number of late once they started using him as kind of their feature back. They're at home. They're usually a better running team at home and a better offense in general. Roshan Johnson might see a few touches, but only near the goal line, not for significant yardage. So 72.5 is just a little bit too low for me in this matchup where the Bears should be playing from ahead. So I'm taking it at home, 72.5 more for just pure rushing yards for DeAndre Swift.
I mean, it's like, it just feels like a lock at this point. He just, he's been so good for that Bears team all of a sudden. I don't know what it was at the beginning of the year, but it's clicked for him, and he has just been like a lock to have great performances. Now, I'm doing another combo for my last one, but it's with quarterbacks. I'm going with CJ Stroud plus Jared Goff, more than 454 and a half combined passing yards. So they need to combine for 455 yards together. Now, they haven't come close to combining for this over the last 3 weeks. So this is why the number is so low, because they need to both hit 227 passing yards. Sorry, 228 passing yards a piece to hit this. Like, that is so low, but it's because Jared Goff hasn't been passing. CJ Stroud has had some low weeks as well. But CJ Stroud at home, these are his home games: 260 yards, 345, 331, 285. And again, like, both of these defenses are very good against the run, but you can pass on them. So 228 a piece. If one of them, like Stroud at home that he keeps doing 300 yards, gets 300 yards, Jared Goff has to pass for 155, or the other way around. Like, so I love, instead of just taking a chance on one of these guys, I put them together, and I feel really good about them hitting 455 together.
Yeah, I love it. Just like your first pick, a good rushing matchup for both backs, and even script. Could be an even script here with the Lions and Texans going back and forth on Sunday night. So I like it, and it's good. It's actually a kind of interesting way to hedge your picks a little bit, to say, okay, I might not get it here, but I'll get it here. Maybe one of these guys will throw for 400 and make it a lot easier on both of us. So with that pick this week. Now, TJ Hawkinson is my pick. I've said that he's going to be more regular now. Josh Oliver did get involved. Could he be Tanner Hudson, much like Mike Gesicki was on Thursday night? We don't want to revisit that one. But when you look at TJ Hawkinson, I know they're involving Oliver, but you would think he's had another week here to settle in. They're going to do everything they want against the Jaguars. The number is probably never going to be this low. They're given about 60 receiving yards per game. The Jaguars, it's 35.5. So I'm going more than that. Even if Josh Oliver cuts in a little bit to his work or catches a rando touchdown here, I think Hawkinson can still stretch the field a few times against the Jaguars. So I'm taking it because, again, taking advantage of the low number while I can. There wasn't really a lot that I liked. George Kittle, I like a lot, but the number is very high this week. So I'm playing a little safe here with Hawkinson being involved.
Yeah, that's such a low number. He could easily hit that. He should be on the field more than his first game back. That's just, it's just too low of a number for a guy that's that talented as TJ Hawkinson. So I like that. We're going to move on to our FanDuel lineups of the week. Again, if you don't play FanDuel, these are just all guys we love, obviously, because we're plugging them into our FanDuel lineup. So we'll get into all of that after another quick break.
All right, this episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is also brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified and quality professionals who are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Look, a small business is like a team that you're putting together here in the NFL. You got to have everything clicking, and that's why you need to find the right mix of hires for you. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be open to the perfect role in a new company. In a given month, more than 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you would be looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional only on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier for you. They've even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even quicker. 2.5 million small businesses trust and use LinkedIn Job for hiring. You should be one of them. Post your job for free, linkedin.com/lockedonNFL. That's linkedin.com/lockedonNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply.
This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel's America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Now, if you've been listening to us the last couple of days, we told you to put that bet down on Bengals plus 5.5 against the Ravens. You would have hit that. You would have got your $150 in bonus bets. But it's okay if you didn't do it yet. There's another bet I really like this weekend. It's the Vikings minus 6.5 against the Jaguars. Jaguars looking like they're not going to have Trevor Lawrence. So if it's Mac Jones to get back there, Vikings are going to pick him off a couple times. Sam Darnold can destroy this Jaguars defense as well, with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson, who we've all been talking about this week. So again, that's the Vikings minus 6.5 against the Jaguars. You win that bet and you win $150 in bonus bets. So go to FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Let's dig into our FanDuel lineups as we close out every Friday show. Vinny, who do you got at your quarterback? Now we're doing the main slate here. So the 1 o'clock games and the 4 o'clock games is the tournaments we're playing in.
Yeah, and it's good that they're also including actually the night games in this. So it's good. So we'll get the Texans and Lions as well. So it's a little bit of a change they made. But anyway, let's dive right into it.
I should have known that because I do have a player from the night game.
Yeah, so we'll get into it, and I do too. So that's why I was trying to mention that. But when you look at Brock Purdy, I have 8,100 for him as the price, and I'm liking that price. I'm putting him in the lineup. I liked him as part of a stack. You can pick whoever you want in the stack. You can pick George Kittle. You can pick Deebo Samuel. You'll find out who I'm picking later. But Brock Purdy is the guy at 8,100. Easy choice for me at that price point in relation to the higher price guys.
Shocking. I also have Brock Purdy. At 8,100. I mean, he was one of our favorite plays this week. It makes sense. He was the 5th most expensive quarterback available here, but I think he's worth it against this Buccaneers defense. He's going to put up huge numbers. I'm interested to see if we have the same stack. But moving on to our running backs, I have DeAndre Swift, who you just talked about liking this week against the Patriots, and then Najee Harris against the Commanders. It's not like Najee has the biggest ceiling, but the Commanders are allowing a lot of yards per carry to running backs this season. They're a pretty hard pass defense all of a sudden, so I do think the Steelers will run a lot in this game.
Let me give you that weekly public service announcement. We do not check out these lineups before. We're revealing to our co-host here for the first time when we're recording the show, so revealing, as you know, I do also have DeAndre Swift. It was too good of a value, Michelle. That's why you're on it, and he could be getting very high ownership this week. But I also think there's a reason, because he can go off 7,700 as his price. So I think he can give you that 3x return on investment. When I say that, that's a good 23 plus points, right? 7 times 3 plus another 21. So 23 plus points. That's what we're looking for when we're looking for 3x return when you're playing a tournament. So another bit of FanDuel tip there. My other running back, however, is J.K. Dobbins. Look, he smashed in every Chargers game where they're favored. They're supposed to do something, destroy a team. He comes through big time, and they're at home. I like it. The schedule continues to be good. Next week, they get the Bengals. So every week, it's a good spot here, seemingly, for J.K. Dobbins. One of the better stories in the league. Everyone's on Derrick Henry going to the Ravens, but J.K. Dobbins leaving the Ravens and going to the Chargers has also been a pretty good fantasy story.
Yeah, I was thinking about J.K. Dobbins as well. He was almost in there. I don't know if I couldn't afford him or what, but I think I had to go Najee. He was like a couple $100 cheaper than J.K., but I love that. My wide receivers, I will give you this is going to be the stack with Brock Purdy. It's Juwan Jennings. I would have loved to be able to get a Deebo in there or Kittle, but too expensive. I had to go cheaper. So I went Juwan Jennings. The last time he had to fill in for starting 49ers wide receiver that was missing, he had 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. So this is his first game without Brandon Ayuk that he'll be playing in. I'm excited to see his usage. Then I'm going with Darnell Mooney against the Saints. Drake London's banged up. Great matchup. And then Tank Dell for my third wide receiver here. they finally got that connection. CJ Stroud and him last week against the Jets in a tough matchup. We expect this to be a high scoring game. Again, I would have loved to get Nico Collins instead of Tank Dell, just couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I love those picks, especially because I have Jennings and Dell too. So here we go again. We're in the same mindset.
It's crazy. There's so many options, and we keep picking the same.
Yeah, well, maybe we're just
we talk too much about fantasy.
We talk too much. And look, if we're both agreeing on it, that's good news for you all who are listening, right? That says double stamp of approval. Go after this and try to get some of these guys in your lineup if you can. Don't make it the same as ours. Use some of our suggestions and get there. But Jennings and Dell made a lot of sense. Their prices were just too good here in really good matchups. And look, you could pay up for Nico Collins, but there's that little hamstring issue. Debo's been a little bit banged up. I know Jennings is banged up a little bit too, but I think it makes a lot of sense to have Jennings and Dell. Now, my third one, I did think about Darnell Mooney, but I pivoted to someone we've talked about a lot. I don't need to say much more here. Jordan Addison. He was just too good of a price at $6,500 as my third wide receiver.
Yeah, $6,500 is $1,000 cheaper than Darnell Mooney, and I won't be surprised if they have similar output this week. So that's a good steal from you. For tight end, I went with Hunter Henry against the Bears. He's just so solid with Drake May, and if it comes down to if he gets a touchdown, then I'm going to really get a reward for his price at $5,300. If he doesn't, I still think it's a fine price for him because he's going to get 9 targets in this game. Come down with at least 50 receiving yards. So it comes down to the touchdown or not if he really comes through at this price.
That's a really good choice there. He's really well priced. I mean, you can also look at him as a flex, I think, based on that price. I did consider him in a flex. I also considered George Kittle for tight end, but then I got a little too expensive and I needed to adjust some things. So I'm going with Taysom Hill. We've talked him up a little bit. Taysom Hill, I mean, this is going to be a big part of the Saints offense going forward. I just feel it. They have to do it. They have nothing to lose. They need him in the running game. They need him in the passing game. They might need him to pass the way that Derek Carr could struggle here. So that's good. He's a good Swiss Army knife. He's not eligible at quarterback here, which is okay. We'll take him at tight end. But yeah, Yahoo leagues, Superflex, all that, or Taysom Hill could have some value here going forward as a second QB even. So it's kind of odd that he's still listed QB in a lot of other places, but you can play him as a tight end here.
Man, I would love to see the Saints put him back there at quarterback. I mean, just how much more entertaining would that game be than watching Derek Carr back there? I would love
too. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Now, my flex, I went with another wide receiver from that night game. It's Jameson Williams. We brought up that Jared Goff has been missing his deep threat. I mean, Jameson Williams, in most games this year, he has that deep, long receiving touchdown, 6,300, a cheaper price for a guy that could easily, I say easily because he's done it a lot, have 80 yards and a touchdown in this matchup.
Yeah, that's a great tournament play because, again, big play receivers are always good to put in tournament lineups. And this is actually really good that they've included Sunday night because it gives you so many better options because the Sunday night game, typically, when it's not the Colts, is marquee. And you can have some players in there that you can do that. So I'm glad they actually flexed out that Colts game next week. We'll get a good Chargers-Bengals game next week. So it's always nice to have access to that game because, again, good teams and good players are usually involved there. So I like you doubling up from that game. Now, I didn't have a lot of money, so I actually was examining this. I don't hate this play actually in seasonal. I'll just give you that. It's Rico Dowdle because I know the matchup on paper against the Eagles is not good.
Gross.
It is terrible, but this also could be a game where the Cowboys are trailing and you could get some cheap check down action from Rico Dowdle because you have Cooper Rush back there. The Eagles pass rush has gotten better. The secondary's gotten better. They'll probably blanket and smother CeeDee Lamb, who's going to be playing if he plays through a shoulder injury, which we expect. So that would say, okay, we're going to do that. The Eagles are pretty decent, again, with their coverage on tight end. So I could see Cooper Rush in a lot of trouble and just dumping off 5, 6, 7 passes to Rico Dowdle here to get that cheap value. So I'm hoping for that, but that's what I could afford. And my flex is someone who's going to get some touches this week.
I don't love the matchup, but like you said, if they're losing, he is using the receiving game. And please keep Zeke on the bench. Rico Dowdle is clearly the better option back there. They have nothing to play for. play your young guys. Zeke is not a part of your future. Like, get Rico Dowdle out there. It's not going to be efficient, but he should get touches. And if he can get those receptions, that's a good one. My last one, I went with the Chargers for the defense. They're playing the Titans. I mean, this Chargers defense is allowing the fewest points per game in the league this year. And whether it's Will Levis or Mason Rudolph, they're not going to do anything against the Chargers. Jameis Winston just got like manhandled by them this last week.
Yeah, I have the Chargers too because they were just a nice price. They weren't the highest on the board, which surprised me because the Titans give up the most, and the Chargers just had a really nice game against the Browns. So it kind of surprised me they didn't go straight to number one in pricing, but maybe there's a little bit of bias on the Chargers, or they're going to Charger or whatever. But they're playing the Titans at home. Take it. So it also gives me a stack there with Dobbins. So I like that. I get Dobbins, Chargers, and Purdy and Jennings.
Love it. We have a lot of the same ones, but it's because these are good plays and we really, truly believe it. And we've been talking about them this week. That is it for today's episode. Thank you to you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Give us a like on whatever app you're listening to, and leave us a review because we would love to hear from y'all. We will talk to you on Monday. Hope you all win your fantasy leagues. Bye, y'all.